Hey, kids. Time to stop playing and get ready for bed.
Aw, do we have to? Can't we step another half hour?
Oh, not with school tomorrow. Into your pajamas.
Dad? Dad, I can't find my owl.
Did you look under the bed?
Oh, there she is. Me.
Good. Now get into bed and I'll read you Lil Oil on the Prairie.
Dad, you read that every night, and it's so boring.
And it's scary, Dad. Can you read us something like Robin Hood?
Yeah.
Now, children, I don't know where you heard about Robin Hood. Lil Oil on the Prairie is so much better for you.
Okay.
Once upon a time, not so very long ago, and not so very far away, in a land called Bertie, there lived two big pigs. One was named Mr. Big Rig, and the other was Mr. Bitumen Snuffler, or Mr. Bit Sniffer for short.
That's
Now,
me.
Mr. Big Rig and Mr. Bit Sniffer were very good friends. Mr. Big Rig was the CEO of a major oil and gas company that had been around for years, and Mr. Bit Sniffer was the brand new CEO of a smaller up-and-coming company in the patch. Mr. Bit Sniffer looked up to his friend Mr. Big Rig and relied on him for advice because he had so much more experience in the patch. And Mr. Big Rig loved being a mentor to Mr. Bit Sniffer, so they were very happy pigs indeed. However, one day they spied a rainy cloud looming on the horizon.
Hey, BS.
Yep,
You hear the news today?
I did indeed. What slop. The people of Bertie think that their resources belong to them and that we should pay more for the right to explore and produce in Bertie? I'd like to huff and puff and blow this house right down.
Oh, BS. The patch has been through this before. No need to go all big bad wolf. Not yet.
I sure hope you're right, because if we have to pay higher royalties, we're going to have to cut our dividends for the shareholders, and then our shareholders aren't going to be too happy.
But Dad, aren't we the people of Bertie? And don't we own those resources?
Well,
For big oil's sake, who's teaching these children these things?
at hearing Mr. Bit Sniffer, Lil Piglet became quite agitated and began whispering into Mr. Big Rig's ear. Mr. Big Rig listened in astonishment and then held Lil Piglet in front of him for a proper scolding.
What do you mean that kid's right? What's with this swill of most of the shareholders living outside Bertie? Who cares? Who cares if the profits don't stay here in Bertie? I don't want to hear any more of this drivel. You understand? You remember what happened to little cousin Quibble?
At the mention of Little Quibble's name, Lil Piglet started shaking and then nodded his head earnestly.
Good. Good. I don't know what's happening with this generation. Just last week, my niece Little Quibble started telling the other piglets fracking pollutes the water. And then she wanted to hold a rally in front of our headquarters like those protesters against the Keystone Pipeline.
You know, we really have to keep these little pigs in line, just like the people of Bertie. Now, what are we gonna do?
Like I said, BS, don't worry. The patch has been through this before. This is what we're gonna do.
And so, after lots of consultation with the PR firm, Fog the Public, Mr. Big Rig and Mr. Bit Sniffer laid out their plans. First, they met with Minister of Give the Corporations What They Want, Mr. Backdoor Boar.
So, Mr. Backdoor Boar, how are ya? How's the family?
Fine, fine. And yourself and Lil Piglet?
Well, Little Piglet's not been quite right recently, but hey, profit's booming, family's good. I'd like you to meet my bud here, Mr. Bitsniffer, CEO of Feeding at the Public Trough Oil and Gas Company.
Pleased to meet you, Mr. Bit Sniffler.
You as well. Just call me BS.
Your company made a generous donation to my election campaign last time around. Now what can I do for you boys?
Well, we wanted to ask you what the government's going to say and how they're going to respond when the people of Birdie ask for the government to raise royalty payments.
Well, it's not too clear right now. You know, we have been struggling to balance the budgets, and people are really upset about the cuts we've been making to health and education. Don't you think you could see your way to paying a bit more?
Pay more? You're kidding. I thought you, of all people, Backdoor, understood the concept. What's good for the patch is good for Birdie.
Dad, how is it best for the people of Birdie? Is it best that I'm in a classroom with 35 other kids? And remember how long Grandma had to wait for surgery? And isn't the patch making big profits? Won't they care about us?
See, that's what we're up against. If more people start thinking like that, we might not even win the next election. We've already lost some of our greediest wolves in pig's clothing to the Wild Oil Party.
Well, don't you think, Big Boar, that maybe Wild Oil is a little bit more loyal to big corporate interests? And don't you think you might just not win the next election unless you support the patch's needs? Look, it's in all of our best interest to do something about this public opinion. I suggest we go have a swill or two, talk some strategy.
So, Mr. Big Rig, Mr. Bit Sniffer, and Mr. Backdoor Boar went off for a friendly slurp in the trough. And they came up with a great idea. And so the next week, Mr. Big Rig and Mr. Bit Sniffer held a news conference.
So, BS, you contact the media?
Yeah, I did. Like you
Sorry?
told me to.
Time?
Right now, the media's late like they always are.
Mr. Big Rig and Mr. Bit Sniffler, we understand that you have issued a press release stating that the patch is totally opposed to the people's demands that the oil and gas companies pay more in royalties. Would you care to comment?
Yes, we would. Yes, we would. Look, people just don't understand the impact raising royalties will have on companies and themselves. They don't know that the cost of production is higher in Birdie than in the US or BC or Saskatchewan. We just can't afford to pay any more. It's an economic fact.
Whoa, Dad, what do they mean they can't afford it? We all know they make super profits. And between 1999 and 2008, they made excess profits of $121 billion. And that's not counting the oil sands. They're just
lying.
So, what do you say to that?
Don't listen to that kid. The public needs to understand that royalty rates have always been set by the government in collaboration with the patch, not the public. The public has and really should have no say in this matter. They simply don't understand the intricacies of the royalty system.
So, what would the impact be?
The impact would be that we would have to go elsewhere, to another province or even another country.
Presumably where there's oil,
Of course.
like Newfoundland or Norway, where the government's requested that the companies pay more in royalties and they still flourish.
Look, let's just turn this thing off for a minute, shall we? Who do you think you are? Who do you think owns the private media corporation you work for?
But surely you want me to tell the truth.
Oh, let's get this straight, Trotter. The truth is who pays for it. Now turn the thing back on. Now, as Mr. BS and I were saying, if we go elsewhere, the government of Birdie would have fewer royalty resources to pay for health and education, and people would lose jobs in the oil and gas industry, and then where would they be?
Well, thank you for your time, Mr. Big Rig and Mr. Bit Sniffler. Rest assured that we will repeat everything you say. Good day.
That's right, you will.
Once the news conference ended, Lil Piglet jumped out from under his father's arm and started talking in an excited manner.
What do you mean we're lying? Where did you hear we use less complex technology here, so it actually costs 26% less to produce here in Alberta than in the US?
And so what if it actually costs a little bit more to produce in other provinces because they don't have the infrastructure or experience of Birdie? We could still go.
But Lil Piglet didn't listen. Instead, he kept right on talking. Mr. Big Pig roared.
Enough! Who needs you to remind them that in fact we stayed right here the last time royalty rates went up? Who needs you to remind them most people kept their jobs? Who needs you to remind them that every dollar invested in public health and education and services actually produces more jobs than every dollar invested in the patch?
These are really dangerous ideas. What will we do if they spread?
They won't. We'll make sure they don't. Piglet, I warned you. Didn't I warn you?
Mmm. 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 That was so good. Delicious.
Bet you never knew Little Piglet tasted so good, BS.
Younger and sweeter piggies.
We told you we didn't like the story, Dad. Poor little piggies.
Well, it's important you learn this lesson.
Dad, are you saying that we'll get eaten too if we tell the truth?
Don't be silly. We're human. They're pigs.
But Dad, what will you do if they come after us?
The end.